This hack tip is brought to you by Bitbucket by Atlassian. Welcome to HakTip, the show where we break down concepts, tools, and techniques for hackers, gurus, and IT ninjas. I am Shannon Morse, and today we are discussing archiving and compressing files through the terminal. Yes, you can do it in the GUI, but we show you everything in the terminal here. So first off, some terminology before we get started. Archiving combines several files into one file. It does not change the size. Compressing takes files and compresses them into a smaller file size, hopefully smaller. Now there are many different ways that you can archive and compress files, including bzip2, there's gzip, there's zip, and there's tar, just to name a few. Zip is the first one. This is really common across multiple operating systems, so you'll find it on Windows, for example. It's great for transferring files. Gzip is its open source neighbor, which is commonly found on Linux. bzip2 is a little bit slower, but apparently it compresses smaller, and it does in some cases. And then tar is used for archiving on Unix machines. Now, all of these can be used on your Linux machine depending on your use case, so I'm going to explain the differences in a little bit more detail and show you how to use each one. So first off is zip. This one is going to archive and compress different files. So for example, I have this 4K wallpaper and a whole bunch of scripts down here, like you can see in this folder. So I'll leave that GUI open so you can see what's happening as I do it. So currently this file is 192 kilobytes, I'm pretty sure. Oh, it's 196, I was close. So let's see if I can compress it with zip. So first of all, I need to change my directory. I'm in snub stuff, test, and there's my wallpaper right there. Don't you love the purple color? I love the purple color. So to change this, I'm gonna do zip, wallpaper, zip, and that's just what I'm gonna name it. And I am going to be working with the wallpaper2.png. So hit enter, and you'll see the zip show up down here, and then I can type lstack, and I'll use LH to show you where it is and show you the size difference. So here's the PNG file, and then I have 143K for the wallpaper.zip. So it did indeed compress it to be a little bit smaller with zip. Now if I wanted to, I could also zip up several files at once, so I could use this test.zip, and I will compress wallpaper2.png. I'll use one of those TechThing text documents, and I'll also zip up one of my HakTip segments. There we go. Hit enter, and then it will zip up all of those into a nice little archive. I think it's really cute that it calls them deflated too. I think that's hilarious. I don't know why, I just think it's funny. Now let's see that I have a directory in here. So I'll create a directory real quick and call it my test2 directory, and I'll stick a couple of files in there. Obviously I could also do this in the terminal, but I'm gonna do it in the GUI so you can see exactly what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to zip up a directory. So I can do that with zip tac-r, and I'll call this test2.zip test2. Hit enter, and it should create a zip folder with your directory with the two HakTip segment scripts that I wrote. Now that R stands for recursive, which is what I use to zip up any kind of directories. If you want to, you also have power over how compressed a file or a folder is going to be when you use the zip command. For this, you can use the number option after zip in the command, which will tell zip to compress a lot or compress nothing. So zip tac 0 and then putting in wallpaper.zip or whichever your zip name is won't compress at all when compared to zip tac 9, which will compress a lot. And it does actually increase the zip amount, which is kind of interesting, just in case you're zipping a bunch of files and you want them to go fast, or if you don't care and you want to compress them even more, then you can make it run much slower. If you want to password protect a zip file, add the tac-e option, not tac-p, because that will show up in your history. So it would be, for example, zip tac-e, and then I'll do test3.zip, and I'll zip up that photo again, wallpaper2.png. And it's going to ask me for the password. I'm going to use Kirby, verify password, Kirby, and then it will create it. So now if I want to open this, I can open it here, but I can't open the file, so I'll have to type in Kirby and hit OK. And there we go. Now obviously keep in mind it is really easy to crack zip passwords, so it's kind of pointless to use. I don't know, but there you go, just in case you wanted to use it for some reason. Now to see what is in a zip file using the terminal instead of the GUI, you can use unzip. So for that, I would use unzip -L, and then I'm going to unzip the wallpaper.zip file. Oh, oops, I capitalized it. Keep that in mind, everything is case sensitive. There we go. Lastly, you can also test a zipped archive with unzip -T wallpaper.zip to make sure that your files aren't damaged or anything is wrong with them. So I'll type that in, unzip -T wallpaper.zip, and it will show me no errors detected in compressed data of wallpaper.zip. Yay! Okay, after the break, I'm going to show you how to use tar, gzip, and bzip2. Stay tuned. Let's be honest, your code is your world. You create it, you tweak it, and you lovingly obsess over it every single day. So picking the right repository management tool is super important. Only the best for your code. Same with me, only the best for my code. That's why the team at Atlassian created Bitbucket. Bitbucket is the Git solution for professional teams helping over 5 million developers build with a purpose. Bitbucket gives teams of all sizes free, that's right, again I said free, private repositories with state-of-the-art features like the world's best pull request algorithm, built-in continuous delivery, and integrations with your favorite tools like Docker, AWS, and Azure. Plus you get Jira integration, since it is from Atlassian, giving your team everything you need to take your code from concept to customer. We've used Bitbucket here to share private code and collaborations with each other so that the code is so perfect before we ever release it into the wild. Bitbucket is for the code that takes us to Mars. It's for the code that decodes the human genome, or it drives your next car. Or for us InfoSec people, maybe it's for your next InfoSec tool. You can visit bitbucket.org/forthecode to start your free account. That's bitbucket.org/forthecode. Try Bitbucket today. What will your code do? We're back with archiving and compressing files. Next up, we are going to check out gzip, which is super popular in Linux, and it can also archive with help from tar and compress. Now, when you use gzip in the terminal, keep in mind that it's not going to keep the original file unzipped as opposed to zip, which will. That's really important. It will zip up and delete the original. Well, kind of delete the original. Now, if you want to customize this, you can, so you can actually keep the original file. On the other hand, if you don't care, gzip's a little bit shorter to type, so it might be easier. So an example of this would be gzip wallpaper.wallpaper2, case sensitive, wallpaper2.png. And that's it to zip up that wallpaper file. So if I double click in here, you can see that my wallpaper is now in a gzip file. Now, alternatively, you can also type in gzip -z wallpaper2.png caret. So it's bringing this to wallpaper2.png.gz. Hit enter, and you'll notice the zip file has now showed up in my directory. Right there, but I also have kept my original file, wallpaper2.png. Just like with zip, you can also use TAC 0 through TAC 9, and yes, I use TAC because my family's military, so it's what I grew up with, to change compression amounts. Now next is bzip2, which works literally the exact same way of gzip, so I'm gonna skip over those commands because you pretty much know them already if you know gzip. And then lastly, we also have tar, which is used for archiving, not compression, just archiving. So tar works with bzip2 and also with gzip to archive and compress files. Tar does not delete the original file, keep that in mind, so it works very similar to zip. To zip up one file or multiple, just type in tar, TAC-CF, and I'm gonna call it wallpaper.tar and use wallpapers2.png. You'll notice it shows up right here, and if I ls TAC-LH that, now this one, strangely enough, is just a little bit bigger, and that's because it requires a little bit more data to archive it as opposed to compressing it, which is compressing it, obviously. And also tar stands for tarball. Now, if you're curious what the TAC-CF means, the TAC-C is for create, and the F specifies that it's a file, so very easy to understand there. To make tar work with gzip, you can type in tar TAC-CVZF or ZCVF, as some folks use, and then wallpaper.tar.gz, and I'll use test2 to do those multiple files in test2. And you'll notice that my directory shows up inside the tarball file. Now, if you're curious about that takzcvf, that means gzip create verbose file. And that's it. If you want to use bzip instead of gzip, all you have to do is change the takz to a takj. Don't ask me why it's a J. And also, if I wanted to just tar gz one file instead of a whole directory of files, I can just type in that file instead. So I'll use techthingshort 001.txt for that example. And there we go. Lastly, if you want to unzip or untar files from a tar, you can use takx instead of takz. So I would type in tar takz xvf, and then whatever the name of my tar.gz file is, and hit enter. And that is going to unzip that tar.gz file. Now if I hit ls tak lh, so I can see all the files in here, you'll notice that I have my directory down here, that image, techthingshort 001.txt, which I just unzipped, and then my wallpaper tar.gz down here. I find this kind of information to be super handy, especially since compressing and archiving files and finding these files online is super common, especially with open source software. Now be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/hack5, and hit the like button if you get some good info out of these episodes. Until then, I want to hear your feedback. Comment below. Make sure to check out our sister show, Hack5, for more stuff just like this. I'm going Southern. Can you hear it in my voice? I'll be there reminding you to trust your technolust. Hey y'all.